Away from health, let's turn to agriculture. A group of agricultural business stakeholders in Ondo State has asked President Bola Tinubu to work with the National Assembly to formulate policies that will reduce the cost of farming for improved food sufficiency in the country. They made their position known at a press briefing in Akure, organized in conjunction with the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the State Governor on Agriculture. And Ayodeji Moradeyo reports.
Available statistics show that Nigeria, with a population of more than 200 million people, is blessed with vast arable land. But the country has continued to struggle with production of food to meet internal and external demands. The recent declaration of a state of emergency on food security by President Bola Tinubu is an indication of his commitment to improving the agriculture sector. A group of stakeholders in the agriculture business in Ondo State, southwest Nigeria, drawn from livestock and crop production, have placed some demands before the president.
When we protested for several months...
Speaking on behalf of the group, the Senior Special Assistant to Ondo State Governor on Agriculture, Akure, said decisive steps must be taken to improve security for farmers and rural dwellers. Olotu stressed the need for farmer-friendly loan schemes, decentralization of operational structure at federal agencies in the agriculture sector, among others.
Operators of large-scale farms in Nigeria are operating as orphans. They make their roads. The way Mr. President withdrew subsidy on petrol.
The group also urged the federal government to mandate local government areas to work for strategic rural roads as essential for food production.
Let mere administrative and coordination, monitoring and review be what is done in Abuja. Regional arrangements should be put in place to coordinate states under their region.
The group also urged the federal government and the National Assembly to work together to increase the budgetary allocation to the agriculture sector in order to boost food production. Ayodeji Moradeyo, TVC News, Akure.
Nigeria's economy has made it imperative to block loopholes in the system that allows corruption to thrive and ensure the independence of anti-graft agencies. These were conclusions reached at an Integrity Innovation Lab workshop in Abuja, and Helen Osamide-Akins reports.
Corruption remains a hydra-headed monster, very much the cause for the worsening state of the economy. It is one of the challenges President Bola Tinubu must meet head-on if he must succeed in the quest to turn around the situation of Nigerians. The president says part of his strategy to achieve this would be putting a system for effective wealth distribution in place to greatly reduce the temptation to commit corruption. Successive governments had made efforts to curbing the menace of corruption in the country, but achieved minimal success, as can be seen by its dangerous impact on the growth of the nation. This anti-corruption group insists Tinubu must tread a different path by building accountable institutions and ensuring the independence of the anti-corruption agencies.
The government signing into the open government partnership. So the open government partnerships also imbibes the principle of accountability and open governance. So the government can lead those kind of conversations, and they're already doing that to see how they're working around the extractive industry to ensure citizens are more engaged in decision and policy making.
And the anti-graft war must filter to the states, who must show a keen interest in pushing those caught with their hands in the till. Activating ICPC Anti-Corruption Transparency Monitoring Units in their MDAs will be a good place to start.
The Act 2 helps them in identifying corruption-prone areas, carrying out system studies and review, and advising organizational management on the best way possible to reduce corruption, and sometimes conduct what we call preliminary investigations.
Nigeria is currently ranked 150 out of 118 nations assessed in the Transparency International 2022 Corruption Perception Index. The workshop is aimed at developing actionable strategies for improved service delivery, enhanced integrity, and establishment of trust in communities throughout Nigeria. Helen Osamide-Akins, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's turn now to the environment sector, where stakeholders have called on the federal government to ensure climate justice for the vulnerable in rural communities during natural disasters. This was disclosed at a workshop to inaugurate Nigeria's Climate Justice Alliance in Abuja. And Mariam Mohammed reports, and after this report, we'll bring you updates in business and sports. Stay with us.
Climate-related disasters and their impacts on communities are on the increase across the globe. And while some developed countries have been able to adapt to these impacts, the situation is not the same for most developing countries like Nigeria. A recent report by World Bank shows that Nigeria has 73% of its population living below the poverty line. This means struggling with multiple effects of climate and conflict shocks can be very tasking. It is why this group is calling the attention of the federal government to look into the plight of vulnerable rural dwellers and come to their aid. At this workshop, leaders shed light on what the nation needs to do in order to bring justice to the vulnerable in the society as a result of climate change.
Africa contributes less than 10% to the issues of climate change, but the developed world are the ones, and that's where the injustice comes from, because they've used our carbon budget, let me put it that way, the global carbon budget, to be able to develop themselves, while we in Africa, we are not able to develop ourselves because we need to use our natural resources to develop ourselves.
Nigeria, for example, when flooding event happens, the ones that bear the greatest brunt are not the rich in Lagos, in Abuja, or in Port Harcourt. They are also the poorest of the poor in those communities, and they are the ones that have contributed the least to climate change.
The issue of women being vulnerable to these issues, climate change issues and impacts, is a top priority for us.
In order to tackle impacts of climate change, these experts believe the nation needs a massive increase on the optics of renewable energy. Mariam Mohammed, TVC News, Abuja.